The structural features of Indian social systems. The term social system comes from biological analogy, that is directly imported from the biology. All social relations disregarding slight variations with person to person is the core of social structure. It is a complex of principal groups and institutions which constitute the society. Interchangeably with social organizations, social structure is a systematic ordering of social relations by act of choice and decisions. We arrive at the structure of society through abstracting from concrete population and its behaviors, the pattern or network of relationship obtaining from actors in their capacity of playing roles relative to one another. Institutions are the units through which we build the conceptions of the social structure. This is a complex of major institutions and group in our society. This is to say that social structure is basically a very balanced blend of institutions and groups in the society. There are at least 5 prerequisites connected with the social structure, and these prerequisites are basically regarding the function that the social structure helps society to perform. And the 5 important items are: first, there should be a system of communication, an economic system dealing with production and allocation of goods and services, arrangement of socialization of new generation through family and educational system, a system of authority and distribution of power, a system of ritual serving to maintain or increase social cohesion and to give social recognition to significant personal events such as birth, poverty, courtship, marriage and death. The term social structure is loosely applied to any recurring pattern of social behavior or to the ordered interrelationship between the different elements of a social system. For example, the different kinship, religious, economic, political and other institutions of a society may be said to comprise its social structure. It may also consist of norms, values and social rules. However, there is no generally agreed meaning, and attempts at providing a succinct definition have really proved singularly unsuccessful. Social structure is considered to be an analytical tool to understand how men behave in their social life. There are at least 3 important pillars of the Indian social structure. First is family, then you have community, then you have state. Family, if you look at, basically Indian society is known for what is called joint family system, and joint family system is defined in terms of co-residentiality, commensality, joint ownership of property. But many a time it has been found that the jointness of the family should be defined in terms of fulfillment of obligation towards kins. When we look at the community, the two broad community we find in our Indian society, namely rural community and the urban community. If you think in terms of faith, then we have communities like Hinduism, Islam, Buddha, etc. And in terms of state, if you look at the state and if you want to see the right definition of the state, then obviously we have to look at the constitution of our country. Article 15 of our constitution clearly defines that unless the context otherwise requires, the state includes the government and Parliament of India and the government and the legislature of each of the states and all local or other authorities within the territory of India under the control of the government of India. And if you look at our history, we find the mention of terms like Mahajanpadas, village republic. So a state actually becomes the guardian to regulate the socio-economic life of a social system. Earlier too, we had different scriptures like Manusmriti, we had Asiatic Society, which of course Bhagavad Gita, and so many other texts which helped us regulating the system. And if you look at the institutional way of controlling the society, regulating the society, then obviously there are two important schools which are very much mentioned, namely Dayabhagi school and the Mitaksharai school. Dayabhagi school actually controls the North India and the Eastern India, and the Mitaksharai school regulates Southern India. Tribal community is also an important part of our society. Approximately the tribal population constitute 8.6% of the total population. A number of tribes such as Munda, Ho, Oraon, Bhil, Gadi, Santhal, Kol, Kand, Khasi, Garo, Mizo, Naga, etc. exist in different parts of India. In tribal people, we find that all members are related to each other by blood. All members are equal in status. They have common ancestors. Members have equal resources. Private property is least visible. Social differentiation exists only on the basis of age and sex. However, many scholars have said that tribal people are basically backward Hindus, and there are reasons for that which may look at it later. Of course, if you look at Hindus, then of course we Hindus follow what is called Sapinda system, where 7 generations from the father side and 5 generations from the mother side. Marriages are considered to be taboo, illegal too. Then we go to Purusartha. Hindu culture centers around 4 values: karma, arth, dharma and moksha. This fourfold value order is based on the understanding that the humans have many needs. Man needs food and sex, power and property, human society and relation with the universe. The satisfaction with the bodily need is kama. The satisfaction of needs of power and property is artha. The satisfaction of needs of oneness with the universe is moksha. If you look at the economy, then obviously there is agrarian non-monetized economy that we had earlier in the traditional Indian social structure, a level of technology where domestic units remains the units of exchange, a non-differentiation of occupations between father and son, between brothers and brothers, and value-based traditional authority. In the economic parlance, there was a beautiful practice which existed in our country. It exists even today as well in some form or the other, that is called Jajmani System. This is an important institution that developed during the early medieval period and continued till modern times in the rural society. It was a complementary relationship between the groups of dominant peasant caste on the one hand and service and artisan caste on the other. In this system, the service caste rendered services to the land owning peasant caste as well as the high and the dominant caste, and were entitled to traditionally fixed shares of the produce, in some cases of course to a small plot of land as well. So, Jajmani system is basically a beautiful blending, beautiful relationship between Kamin and Jajman, and India has seen, the traditional social structure of India has seen that how the complementary system between both the units actually form a very wonderful social order. Then we look at Jati and Varna. Varna refers to the work that an individual would undertake in society according to his position in relation to group and with reference to his innate nature, tendencies and dispositions. In Rig Veda, Purush Sukta and 108 Mandal, there is a mention of 2 Varna. The one is Arya and the other is Dasa, with 3 orders: Brahmin as a priest, Kshatriya as warriors, and Vish means common people. The 4th category was subsequently included as Sudra. So there are 4 Varnas: Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vash and Shudra. In the case of caste, we find caste as an endogamous group defined around value of purity and pollution. Sometimes it is also defined as idiosyncratic psychological predisposition of Indians' mind. This is to say that it is almost idealized. There is a synchronization of caste value in our personality, in our social practices, and this is largely rooted in our soul, that is psychology. And predisposition is something which is inextricably intermingled with our everyday experience. This is the reason why it has also been said that caste comes from the soil. This is something which is completely imbued in the Indian personalities. Indian social structure is reflected through certain channels, and these channels are Purusartha, which we have already talked about, tribal population we have already dealt with, joint family system we have also spoken on it, economy that largely gets reflected in terms of for traditional of course barter exchange system, now it is all monetized, and of course to some degree being with what is called Jajmani system, Jati and Varna, we know it well that how Varna was changeable, it could be achieved in course of time, but Jati is something which is largely inborn, it is something which is largely ascribed, it cannot be achieved. Once born in a caste, one has to be in the caste forever. But if you look at the different processes under which Indian social structure has gone, these are like accommodation, where we find that many people from outside, they came to our country, they saw the practices, the rituals, the walk of life, the ideology and so on, and they got themselves acculturized, and people also gave them a space, that is accommodation. I mean, accommodation is a process wherein the host gives a space to the guest in the case of accommodation, but there is also currents of assimilation as well. For example, the different Indo-Aryan race or any race for that matter, they came to India and they found the Indian system not necessarily conducive to what they were expecting. So, we find some degree of say cultural crisis in the way of assimilation. Then we have Sanskritization, and Sanskritization, as we know, is a process whereby a low caste person tries to imitate, copy and mimic the lifestyle of high caste people, dominant caste people, and as a result of Sanskritization we find there is a change within the caste system and not of the caste system. This is to say that a lower caste can become a better lower caste, but it does not mean that the lower caste become a medium caste or a higher caste or something of that sort. Westernization, as we know, is a 150 years experience with the British Raj, and that happens at three layers: the primary layer, the secondary layer and the tertiary layer. In case of primary layer, those people who are in direct contact with the Britishers, they learned the art of living with them, they learned the art of rationality with them, and in the case of secondary level, whatever they wrote the text, that text actually influenced others at the tertiary level. So that happens at three levels. Then we have modernization and globalization. Modernization, globalization also has given so much of a space where Indian social structure has changed. Like if you look in terms of the different value system, you may find that how modernization and globalization are leading to change. If you consider the implications of Indian social structure, then obviously you find certain things. For example, considering the unequal structural arrangement, we have had affirmative action to alleviate the poverty, employment and miseries of untouchables. Article 46, that is directive principle of state policy, that clearly states that the state shall promote with a special care the educational, economic interest of the weaker sections of the people, and in particular of scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, and shall protect them from social injustice and all form of exploitation. We get the pragmatic idea practicing egalitarianism, compassion, brotherhood to treat all alike. To promote a space for identity and ethnicity is also one of the offerings of Indian social structure. Actually, Indian social structure is about hierarchy, holism and transcendence. Indian social structure consists of family, community and state. The Indian social structure informs us about the different social arrangements that are making adequate adjustments with modern changes. The secular, the equity, the tolerance, the compassion and egalitarianism are ensuring the comprehensive and inclusive growth of our society. Thank you.